Did you see it? Have a look, have another look. Above the windows there are, as you may see, rising sun symbols above the lower windows. I love it. Above the lower windows you see rising sun symbols, and again the rising sun, it appears above the door of Downing Street. It's another symbol. The rising sun coming up over the hills. Now what you saw there were very modern buildings, very brand new. So that you may think, well, this is a recent thing. And why the hell are Illuminati symbols being found in the streets of suburban Oxford? Well, all will become clear as we continue our journey. What I'm going to show you now is another building. It's a much older building, Victorian, and it is literally almost next door to the modern buildings we saw just now. The Illuminati pyramid symbols and the sun disk. Have a look at this. Now just look at that. What you see there is another pyramid. Another pyramid with a detached capstone. I know it's a little bit vague, it's not a complete pyramid, but it's the same thing. It's exactly the same shape. And you see it on an older building, and it's literally just next door to those buildings we just saw. So now you have two buildings with it right next door to each other, built more than 100 years apart, with the same symbolism in the roof gables. And I know you're saying, you're sure you've seen these symbols before, haven't you? Of course, it's standard architecture. Many modern buildings use this kind of architecture, and you're used to that kind of thing. But how often do you see them so close together? And buildings together, which are so close together, one's older, one's newer. Doesn't that seem a bit strange to you? And it doesn't stop there, because right next door to that Victorian building, there's another building here, which is even older. I'd say it's several hundred years old. Now have a look at the roof gables and tell me what you see. It's another pyramid with a detached capstone. You ever seen anything like that? Yet another one. Don't you think that's weird? Am I the only one who can see the strangeness? Surely not. Well, we'll have to see what all this is about. Where does it come from? Where did all this come from? Why have they built these things? That's the question. What does it mean? Well, there's a little story behind it, and I'll tell you all about that as we continue our journey to the most interesting part of our tour. Just heading off down the road now. You see here, it's a normal suburban street, one that you might find in any city. It's actually in Oxford, but a part of Oxford you're in, it's actually called, guess what it's called? It's called Temple Cowley. Now does that give you a clue? There's the old building there. It's the old building. There's the Victorian building there. And further along you see the brand new buildings that we spoke of earlier. So I'm going to keep going. Oh, and they've got a green light here, so we can cross over. You see, the Temple Cowley actually relates to the Knights Templar. The Knights Templar were an order of monks that lived in the 11th, 12th, 13th century. They were actually purged in the beginning of the 12th century, 1307 actually, Friday the 13th of October, which is why the number 13 is always considered unlucky. Now the Knights Templar, history tells us that they are a band of warrior monks that fought in the Crusades. They were very brave, they were very highly trained. They were very much what we would call today special forces. They often were given the most dangerous missions behind enemy lines. Their duty was to protect pilgrims from the Saracen marauders on their way to pilgrimage in the Holy Land, because of course the Crusades were raging at the time between the Muslims and the Christians. Thing is though, for much of the Crusades there were only 9 of the Knights Templar. How on earth, you may wonder, would 9 men manage to protect millions of pilgrims on this long and treacherous route between Europe and the Near East? There must have been more to it than that, and there is. And the more to it is that what they were really there for was to find the Holy Grail. And many authors, like the authors of the Arthurian legends and people like that, have mentioned about the Holy Grail. Now, what is the Holy Grail? Of course, it's just a cup, isn't it? Just a mug. We've heard about it from the stories, the romance of Parzival and all these old stories. Well, maybe there's more to it than that. Maybe there's more to it. Now where I'm standing now is at the Oxford Records Office. This is the Oxford Records Office in Temple Cowley, Oxford. And it looks very like a church, doesn't it? And in fact it was a church. It was a church. Until quite recently, that was actually a church. It was deconsecrated and turned into offices. And today, it's basically where you come to get all the birth certificates, find out your family tree, things like that. But it is built on the site of an old Knights Templar preceptory. A preceptory is like a lodge, like the Masonic Lodge. And, believe it or not, the modern architects of this building have commemorated its ancient past. We're going to go inside and have a look. I've asked permission here and they've told me I can film. So I'm going to walk in through the doorway. Going to head up now to through the grounds. And you'll soon see exactly what is so interesting about this place. Oh, there's another bit of symbolism there, see? A Maltese cross. Peace between thy walls. It's a church symbol, obviously, but it's a Maltese cross, which is another esoteric symbol. A cross with the flared arms. Now, what you were looking at now may look like a children's playground game. It's actually a Knights Templar labyrinth. It was part of the Knights Templar initiations. They used to walk in through here, through this bit, and they used to walk all the way up round there and round there. They have to do it blindfolded while the others were shouting directions. And that's how they learned to trust each other. It engendered a feeling of trust in people. The thing about it is that some modern Masonic orders also use that form of initiation. I'm going to show you the plaque here. The Knights Templar Labyrinth. The Knights Templar and the distinctive red cross on a white ground were founded about 1118 to protect pilgrims on the route to Jerusalem. Well, we've already seen how that can't be true. We've already discussed that. They rapidly spread through most of Western Christendom, owing direct obedience to the Grand Master. And Cowley became one of their earliest English foundations when Queen Maud gave her lands to them in 1139. Well, a lot of people gave their knights lands to the Templar, basically because they owed them a hell of a lot of money. The Knights Templar are the richest guys on earth. So much for what was they call themselves? The poor monks? No, I don't think so. Although useful as bankers to the crown, the Templars gained too much power for the authorities to tolerate them. In 1308, their property was seized, and horrific allegations made about their activities, confessions being extracted under torture. This is heresy, basically. Heresy, sexual deviance, you know. But basically it was true. It was true. They were practicing. But you see, there's nothing, you may want to know. By that definition, I'm a heretic as well. Not in terms of the sexual deviancy, obviously. Well, we won't go there. But in terms of the fact I'm not a Christian. You know, I'm a pagan, I'm a pantheist, I'm a heathen. Pope Clement V dissolved the order in 1312, and the Grand Master was burned at the stake in Paris 2 years later. His name was Jacques de Molay, and it's rumour has it that when the King and Queen of France were burned at the stake in Paris in 1789, or so they were beheaded, in Paris in 1789, one of the men jumped onto the executioning table, picked up the head of the king, held it aloft and shouted, "Jacques de Molay, you are avenged." Now why would he shout that? There must be some link here. As part of their initiation in Cowley, the Templars had to walk the path of a labyrinth, the only four-circuit labyrinth known to have existed in the British Isles. The original labyrinth was destroyed in 1852, its plan survived, and the shape has been recreated to the original scale here in the grounds of the Oxfordshire Records Office. So there you have it. The legacy of the Templars continues, and it will continue many times in the future. Anyone who's read books like Da Vinci Code and things like that, you know, and what National Treasure will be familiar with the Templars and their influence. The fact that very often, rumour has it they're still there today. In fact, there are several orders, there are several organisations today call themselves Knights Templar, and we'll go more into that in part 3 of this video.